Hey guys, it's Joe Carrell. Welcome to another episode of In the Mix. Today we're going to talk about distortion and how to use it to make elements of our mix more prominent.
I want you to take my wheels and drive me one last time. Drive me one last time. Oh.
Okay guys, so I have the mix pulled up for MISY One Last Ride. And if you haven't heard it yet, check the Warm Audio social media pages. There's a video up there. Check out her own social media, MISY. She's an extremely talented young pop artist from Los Angeles that I had the privilege of producing this for. And it's a really cool song. It's a very current, modern pop tune in a lot of regards, but I threw some retro elements in there. It just felt like it needed some of that old R&B stuff. You'll hear some very retro style guitar parts and even the bass and things like that. But anyway, let me kind of refresh, if you haven't heard it, or even if you have, let me kind of refresh you with the arrangement and the sound, okay? Right, really cool song, and man, I tell you what, her vocals were really impressive, really impressive. So anyway, what I want to talk about though is I'm going to mute her vocal for now. I want to focus on the track. Some of these elements, there were two kind of important ingredients for me. When you get into a track like this, which is very heavily programmed, I mean, really the only real instruments on here were a couple passes of electric guitar. Everything else was synthetic programmed. I did all the drums, and a good friend of mine, David Dorn, which you may have seen in some of my other videos, did the synth parts, and he knocked it out of the park. But sometimes when you're working in pop music world, and you start getting a high track count, full of plug-in generated sounds and stuff, things can start getting a little sterile. So one way that I combated that for this song was when David was here and we were laying down the synth lines. I ran everything through the WA-73 preamplifier. Captured those on the way in, so that's in the box, otherwise digital plug-in software passed through a real transformer, a delicious sounding transformer on the way in. So that gave this arrangement, this song, some vintage character that it wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's an important thing. So even when I play with these sounds raw, they're going to be bigger and better than they would have been otherwise. Now, once I got everything here and ready to mix, what I discovered with her vocals out front and the drum pattern doing its thing, there were some of these synth parts that were a little dark that I needed to really treat effectively during the mix to get them to pop out and make them be featured and heard the way they need to be. So really what I'm going to talk about is distortion. I know I've featured it in little bits here and there in some of our other videos, and there's been a lot of questions and comments in my social media and my messages and things like that. It seems like a lot of you may not be familiar with using distortion, in mixing for the sake of getting things to be heard and actually bringing them out. When you think of distortion, you think of guitar amps or whatever. You don't necessarily think of trying to make something not distorted sounding, just reach the forefront of the mix. So I want to dive into that subject just a little deeper today. So in this course, there are a few elements that are really kind of need to jump out to the forefront to keep the movement and the motion going underneath her melody. Number one is this synth part right here. So I'm going to play it raw as we captured it, okay? I should point out this is the DSP 6050 Ultimate Channel Strip. You see there's some compression going on and some EQ going on. Pretty heavy-handed EQ. But this is what I want to talk about, this distortion module here, the D100. Let me take this thing out of bypass after a couple beats and let you hear the massive difference it makes. Okay, so let me play it in the track again, and you're going to hear that you don't necessarily hear you know, distortion, but all of a sudden that part just really pops out and comes at you. Really, really cool. Okay, and there's also this pulsing B3. One of the retro things we were going for was that, you know, that staccato piano thing, but to make it a little more current, we used a B3 sound. And let me play you it raw. It's in the background. Okay, now with the 6050 and the distortion from the MISY circuit here. Okay, when it's soloed like that, you can really hear that grit, that crunch that's on the attack. But when it's in the track, you don't notice that so much as you just notice the part. All right, very, very cool. I really am a big fan of this plugin. I use it anytime I'm dealing with pop stuff. This is one of my favorite tools, honestly. Okay, so now let's talk about the strings. There's strings that come in verse 2 of this arrangement as well as in the bridge, and it's like a pizzicato thing, you know. And let me play you the raw sounds. I'm going to solo them up both at once, just for the sake of time. Here we go. Okay, now I have the 6050 here, and we'll engage that on both of these parts. Okay, now let me play them in the mix, and you'll hear these, and I'll kind of bypass them and then unbypass the plugins as well. Okay, so that's really cool. It's a great part, but you'll hear how we used a lot of vintage sounding tones and patches, and you know, because of that, some of those sounds are a little dark, and so they needed just a little help to be, you know, to be noticed and carry, you know, the melodic, you know, idea or the rhythmic idea that they were intended to carry within the arrangement. And distortion went a tremendous way in helping me achieve that. So I hope that you guys are getting a little better understanding, a little better grasp of how I use it. Honestly, I use distortion even in some of the most elegant sounding mixes that I do. You know, maybe it's just on the bass guitar, making the attack of the instrument, you know, a little more noticeable. Maybe there's just a little bit of it on the snare drum. Whatever the case may be, even in otherwise very clean, elegant arrangements, sometimes distortion can provide just a little bit of what you need for that extra little 10% of greatness, okay? Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching so much. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, if you haven't already, please follow Warm Audio on their social media pages, and also follow my own social media at In The Mix with Joe Carrell, where I'll give you some extra behind the scenes footage and content. Okay, now for MISY singing One Last Drive.
Long drive, trying to stay in my lane. Hard times, with your face in my mind again. And I've tried keeping myself busy, but just like my gas tank, our love is now running